Hello friends, welcome back to another review from Dark Side of the Word. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. I did receive this free arc from the publishers to give you an honest review, and I can promise you this is going to be an extremely honest review. As usual, this review will be done in two parts. The first part will be spoiler free to kind of give you an idea of the story, whether I liked it, didn't like it, help you decide if you want to read the book, and then part two will contain spoilers, so you can click away if you haven't read it, or if you have and you want to know more, we can go into a deeper discussion with the spoilers. Alright, I'm first going to read you the synopsis that I wrote for the book. There's a giant under the mountain, and in a world ruled by light, whoever can get to the giant first might change the future. Some want to kill the giant, some want to control it, and some just want the sun to return, but all want to stop the impending darkness that plagues our home. As dreams filter through the youth of the world, they unknowingly search for 3 artifacts that can access the giant. A girl named Sophie is the first to find the book, using it to end a war that destroyed her city. A boy named James finds the key and uses it to flee his backwater city. And finally, a group of unlikely travelers cross over into the world carrying a sword of untold ability. But can the artifacts be used for good and return the sun to the sky, or will evil forces use the power to bring about the end? Alright, all honesty, I feel very confident in my ability to write synopsis for books. I love doing it. I think it's a great practice for writers to be able to find a way to summarize the book. However, this is the first time that I considered using Goodreads synopsis for the book until I read Goodreads synopsis. And so let me add in and tell you what Goodreads said about the book. From a debut voice comes a genre-breaking blend of apocalyptic sci-fi and epic fantasy about a scattered group of unlikely heroes traveling across their broken mechanical planet to stave off internal darkness. A tightly coiled puzzle of a thrill ride, The Failures launches the Wonderlands trilogy. As you can see from this, I gave a lot more detail. I gave an idea about the book. I gave an idea about the players. This Goodreads synopsis harkens back to early teens, 2014, 2015, when big name authors would suck in their readers and readership, kind of when the Illuminae series finished and Kristoff and Kaufman announced that they were doing, I think it was the Aurora something, and they were like, oh, it's the Fantastic Four meets... It's essentially Unlikely Heroes meets something. Anyway, it's had the same sort of vibe. And I was like, wow, this is very interesting for a debut author. After reading the book, I think it's very important to point out that after reading the book, I honestly don't know how a synopsis can happen. And that is also why I struggled. I probably wrote 3 synopses for this. 3 very different approaches to how to describe the book for you guys. And I landed on this one because I felt that it gave a little bit more detail without giving away anything in the plot. But if writing the synopsis is any indication of what this book is like and how crazy and confusing and overwhelming it was, there you go, because that is exactly what the book is like. If you're following along with my daily reading updates that I do on Instagram, just to kind of like give you guys like an idea of where I'm at, whether or not I like the book in the moment, without giving too much away, you'll understand I have so many thoughts about this book. I set like a whole hour to record this video because I want to have the ability to say everything and pause and be able to get my thoughts in order because I have too many thoughts. A lot of them require spoilers, so I will be talking about that kind of stuff at the end. I'm going to give 3 reasons that I struggled with the book spoiler-free because that's the easiest spoiler-free thing I can do. But again, if you followed the videos, you saw how much of a struggle I had in finishing this book. And I even sent out to viewers, do I get to DNF this book because I was given it like as a job So I view ARCs and requests to review and read books very seriously. And when I'm asked, I make it a huge effort to finish the book, whether I like it or not, because I view it as a job. I'm not getting paid per se to do this because my payment is a copy of the book. And I always ask for a copy of the book because I'm like, okay, if I'm going to do all this work for you, this is a quick pro quo. You know, you're getting stuff out of me, I'm getting stuff out of you, because sometimes when I do ARCs, I get massive viewership on here as well, so it's helpful, but give me a book, okay? That's all I'm asking. Anyway, so I really try really hard. Plus, I want to give artists a chance. This is one of those chances where I am really glad I stuck out with it, because I'll get to that in a minute. My ADHD side quest brain is going out. My point is, if you watch the videos on Instagram, you saw how much I wanted to pull my hair out, how I wanted to DNF this book, and the massive struggle and even the depression over reading this book and understanding why this story was picked above all others and why it was getting this feature and this notoriety and all this stuff. So you may be falling out of your chair when I tell you that I'm very much considering book, if and when it ever comes out. I'm slightly worried. I don't know why, but I get massive Name of the Wind vibes with this book, and I don't mean story, I don't mean anything like that, but the epicness of this, and okay, there's words I want to use that I just don't want to, I don't want to say on here. Kind of the vibe of the author mixed with the epicness of the book and the fact on Goodreads it is not announced yet. A lot of times when people do these, I mean, this is a series, it's already been announced as a series. When people do these series, it is already announced on Goodreads that the next book is going to be released. And a lot of times when authors sign their deals with the agents or the editors, they sign a multi-book deal. And so the fact that this is not already listed as having another book, I'm almost like, well, you put on all this work, you're hooked enough to consider picking up book 2, but you may be extremely disappointed and you're just gonna have to live with that, because I don't know if there'll ever be a book 2. I hated this book at one point so bad that a book at the bookstore caught my eye and I saw that it was from the same publishing house and I said, fuck no. So why am I considering reading book 2, you ask? I'm going to answer that question first. Because this book was such a pain to get there. I wanted to punch people. I wanted to rip the pages out. I wanted to strangle whoever picked it. And I want to say something positive about the book before I get into like the issues. Because I want to give you an idea of whether or not this is worth it. But after going through everything, after this pain and this crying and this severe struggle, the ending paid off. The ending fucking paid off. When I saw the brilliance that Liar was trying, it feels really weird to say his last name, Liar. It's a nom de plume as well, but Liar is what he's picked, and Liar is how I will refer to him. But when you see the brilliance that Liar pulled off at the end, and the webs that he weaved, and all of the things that came together, you just kind of go, fucking shit. Damn it. Oh my god. I need to know more. How? Why? I'm shocked I didn't guess this slightly sooner. I did guess it at one point. And why are more books not written this? Now, even though I say all of this, I still think that there are issues with this book. This is definitely a debut book, and I would say that its level is a little bit lower than a debut book in the style of writing. And I'm going to get into the 3 things that really just, this is the 3 things that made me struggle with this book. But I see now, and it gives me a little bit more faith, I see now why the agent picked the book in the long run. And they really looked more for plot and the substance of the plot and the whole arc of that instead of the writing. And it makes me wonder about the state of today's current publishing industry, because I do see that a lot more. I'm seeing that the effort in this lyrical writing that we have, at least if you've been reading for a while, have gotten used to or have seen as you've grown up, and all of this stuff has kind of been forgotten for more of the substance of the story itself. And I wouldn't say that's entirely a bad thing, because I've read beautiful books with no substance whatsoever in them, and that makes me really pissed off as well. We need to have this merger, And there's a part of me in the artist me and the writer me that's like, should I use this to my advantage? If we're going for more substance over quality, and I use quality as more of a catch-all. I don't actually mean quality, because substance can still be very quality. I'm just saying, if we're going for more of substance of what the story is and what the plot is and what the characters are versus like how we're saying it, then maybe I need to get off my fucking annoying horse of so focused on how well written my books are and just put out these stories that are popped in my head and just start cranking them out a little bit more and kind of just let it all go. Because I think as readers, as agents, all of that's kind of getting flown out the window, and we're wanting more plot. And I'm not against that in a way, because I think that plotting and originality and all this stuff is extremely important. And we lost it quite a bit for writing and style. And maybe that's not a bad thing. And maybe we've gone to this extreme. We can now come together and have like the perfect combination. All right, that was a whole side quest tangent of thoughts. Let's get back to the book. Remember, in case you forgot, I'm reviewing The Failures by Benjamin Lyer, and I'm sorry. I knew this was going to be an extremely long review, so thank you for putting up with me. And now I'm going to specifically get to 3 reasons why I did struggle with this book at the beginning. And when I say I struggled with this book at the beginning, I mean for like the whole book. The first really big struggle was world building. Okay, this book is colossal. Not only is this book 560 something pages, I believe, or 20 something pages, the writing is tiny. A page took me, I swear, 2 minutes to read. And I am a pretty quick reader, but the density of the world building and what I needed to pay attention to and the way it jumped around was harder to handle when I read this. Now, there are a lot of problems with this book in the essence that Lyer decided to take a world not anywhere close to ours. I don't know if it's even on a spherical planet, which begs to question, Lyer, are you a flat earther? But it appears, I'm gonna read it, and this doesn't give anything away, but that the world exists on a mountain, okay? And we have a sky with issues, and we have doors that can go places. So we have to understand the idea of a mountain existing of this world. Okay, so we have to wrap our head around that. I mean, if someone told me that they didn't breathe oxygen and gravity didn't exist on this planet, I would 100% believe it, because of how much Lyer wanted to be like, hey, this is not normal. This is not a normal place. Almost to the point that I even questioned, I'm going to leave this for the spoiler portion, because I think what I tell you is going to give some stuff away. So if you're curious what I mean, that I have a theory about the mountain, go to the spoilers. But, okay, so we have this whole idea that this world is completely different. And if you hear pinging, it is raining outside, and I am right by my porch. Porch is right behind you guys in the camera, so I'm sorry. Anyway, so if you take this mountain and we have all this stuff in this world and all these weird things going on, throw us a bone, Lyer. Like, throw us a bone. Make beer. Make cigarettes, cigarettes. Make the simple thing simple. But no. He decided to change the name of, like, everything in the book, so you had to learn something new on top of trying to keep track of the dynamics of this world and the magic system and all. Oh, yes, there's a whole magic system in this as well. I think there's 2 kinds, and I don't know, and I can't tell if it's good or if it's bad or if it's being denied or not. I've read this whole book, and I don't know. And I don't know how people get magic entirely. Like, I've read 520 pages, and I have no answer for you. But if we're gonna have this massive world, could we have pretty please, just call things normal? I think he called cigarettes slacks and beer shock. Okay, remember, I have problems with names. Anyway, throw us a bone, because I was really struggling with everything already, and I needed it to be a little bit easier. Again, the nail in the coffin in terms of world building, though, was the density, the amount of, like, hit you in the face, try to get you, there was no learning curve. It was just like, we're here. And then at one point in the book, I did feel that new elements were added in to kind of explain away certain world building things or make it a little bit easier for certain things to happen. I was just like, why? And part of me also feels that though it was as dense as it was, the world building was also spread out through the book too much. There was all sorts of problems. All sorts of problems. The second reason that I really struggled with the book was the characters. Now, we're positive about the characters and the writing. Until about nowish, like the end of the book, even knew who the good guys were and the bad guys were. There's even a good guy and a bad guy. And I appreciate his ability to be able to create such well-defined gray characters. And I mean gray characters in the reality of it all. We don't have someone who has altruistic ideas that is going to always make the right decisions about anything. That does not happen in this book, and I really appreciate it, because so many people are like, oh, there's a gray character because he either did really bad things, and the rain is getting so bad, I'm sorry, but so he either did really bad things and now he's changed his life around and he wants to do good things, or he was like abused as a kid, and so now, and I say he's a lot because I see a lot of gray characters featured in male protagonists and not as much in females, and we're getting them more with, say, like Alex from Ninth House and such like that, or the protagonist from The Dead Take the A Train, but ultimately we see them more in male, and they just don't feel as gray as Lyra actually pulled off in this book. And the ability to really see that I did not know until the end who the good guys versus the bad guys were was supremely done, and I appreciated that. And in the same way that I can complain about part one and what happens in part one of like kind of explaining the world, which I'll get to more in the spoiler section. Well, I guess it's not a spoiler, but essentially one of the parts in the first part of the book is that there's like this symposium of people meeting to discuss what's going on and the problems and how they need to fix it. And it's just the theme through like the entire first part of the book. And it's very much, I'm telling you what's happening in this world instead of showing it. I get why it had to happen now, but even though I complained because that was something that was more telling instead of showing us what was happening in the world, it did allow for a basis of like, are these good guys or are these bad guys, and this and that. And it wasn't until the end of the book that I began to see an entire arc of it all and get a kind of a clue. But even then, as you find things out, who might be the good guys now might not have been the good guys before, and I appreciate that, and I think it was well done. However, there are so many characters in this book. So remember I said the world building was dense? The characters are dense, and you can definitely say that every character in this book thinks he's the lead. He or she or they are the lead in this story. They are the lead. They believe that. They think that. They run the show like that. Hats off. That's really well. However, we're having to keep track of all this. When I say there's a huge cast, I mean, I've never read Game of Thrones, but I would like to think this is along the lines of Game of Thrones. So to have to, especially me, who has name issues and problems maintaining things, keeping track of all these people was hard. Very, very hard. And then the last problem with the characters resided in the fact that they were unlikable. They were fucking unlikable. The way that Sophie, and now I'm wondering if her name is Sophie. Oh, I just realized as I'm looking here that there is a completely different synopsis on the back of the arc. I should have referenced that. Yes, Sophie. The way that Sophie is introduced in the book just annoyed the shit out of me, and I was like, I'm not gonna like her. And it took a very long time for me to care about reading her chapters, to care about anything. It happens with James as well. Like, I don't like anyone in this book, and that was the other reason I wanted to throw the book down, is I just did not care, and I did not want to read them. I was like, this is boring. I don't care. I'm not invested. This is pissing me off. And I think that even though we can have like dark characters, The Dead Take the A Train, Ninth House, all this and that, there was something about those characters still that drew the readers in for us to be able to enjoy these kind of like unlikable characters, but cinnamon rolly, there's still a heart inside of them. And the third thing, oh, no surprise, that I didn't like about the book was the writing. I'm trying so hard to be like, I don't want to review books and just completely tear them down. They are art. It took a person a lot of creative energy to be able to create something like this. But personally, in my opinion, the writing in this book is horrendous. Vomit-inducing. It was bad. Worse than, I would even say, that's the wrong name. Out of Blood and Ash. The Blood and Ash series, the first book in the Blood and Ash series, was pretty bad. But this and I know that I complain about the dialogue in The House of Last Resort, but I think this takes the crown of some of the worst dialogue I have ever read. And I almost forgot how bad it was until the last page of the book. And I was like, this is how you want to go end this liar. This is the note you want to go off on. Because it's not a good idea. I think that I have a false sense of security. It's kind of like childbirth. You know, you give birth, you kind of blink what you went through, so y'all give birth again. And I almost think that that is the case with this book, because probably about 2/3 into it, I got used to the writing, and then it became less about the words, and I could just doom scroll images in my head of what was happening and live there instead of living in the writing, because there was so much telling, there was so much force feeding of how I was supposed to feel and how the characters were feeling. The dialogue was cringy. At times, I almost went back and reread multiple times, because I would be told something in one paragraph only to feel that it was being repeated 2 paragraphs later. And when I say repeated, I'm not just saying like we're confirming thoughts and ideas to make sure that the reader is following along. I'm talking about like word for word, almost identical repeats from one paragraph to another. And that was really annoying. Granted, I had a lot of strings to hold, so I am not entirely complaining, but it was fucking annoying, and it played tricks with my mind going, didn't I just read this a second ago? And I think you just have to like read this book to understand what I'm saying. I think that being able to say the writing was horrible isn't something that I can just be like, da 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 da. I think you have to read it to get what I'm saying. So keep that in mind. I am going to give a tiny little nod of possible spoiler here, because I think that this is important to make this book any sliver of enjoyment for anyone that is wanting to read the book. And I'm sorry, there's lightning, and he is really scared of lightning. So he is going to be in the video, my trouble child. Anyway, this book reminisces a lot of The Witcher to me. Witcher season 1. And it's not so much from the plot, but just run with that. If you've seen Witcher season 1, just run with that knowledge. I'm not going to come out right and say. But to end the spoiler-free portion on a positive note, I think that Liar really did pull off something unique and inspiring and completely different than what is being put on the shelf. And I think from a content standpoint, it has been phenomenally created, and the weaving of the web, the reveals at the end, the ability to hold this massive world in their head, to be able to write it the way that it is just phenomenal. And I am definitely falling into the content over substance. Yeah, substance, I don't know. I'm falling into the story instead of the writing and the quality of all that, and I'm playing into the system. Because if I don't get sent an arc, I will be buying book 2. Alright friends, we are going to have spoilers from here on out. So look away, click away, ruin my metrics. I don't give a fuck. Because I have a lot of things that I need to say that contain spoilers. Okay, I'm going to go back to what I was talking about with the world. So I'm going to start with that. So when I was saying so the world's on a mountain, and the giant broke the sky, all this stuff, I believe that Jamie, right? Jamie and Chris? This is what happens to me. I don't remember any names, and when will I learn my lesson about any of this? Okay, they go back. It's Jackie and Gunn. Okay, Jackie and Gunn. So Jackie and Gunn, I believe, came from our own world and all this stuff. And then they travel through the portal, and this is on a mountain, and they've made multiple references to the fact that people get reincarnated. So they live these weird timelines, they die in different ways, they get reincarnated. People that come from other places, say our world, live a really long time, they have a lot more strength, they can, and power. Essentially, they're too big for the space. This place runs on a certain type of silver magic, and the way the lights work, and that the ending of it all, and that the power's running out. What I think this is, and hopefully will be revealed later, is that this is actually a device that everyone is living in, and they are all running the device, and they have made the world, they have made worlds for themselves and a society for themselves to live and work, but we're really just living in a device, and that is what I'm taking away from it, and that is my hypothesis, is that the mountain is a device, and the doors either lead to other devices or other parts of the device in general. So maybe the idea behind the sky are eyes looking out. I don't know. That is my theory, but I want to see, this is the other reason I want to read book 2, is I need to know if I'm right or not. I need to understand what's going on. Which is a great segue into why do I even want to read book 2? Because I am a sucker. I am a flippin' fucking sucker for books that do timeline jumps and reveals and information. And that is why I reference The Witcher, because if you've watched Witcher season 1, you at the end realize the detriment of watching the whole thing and need to then watch it again, is that Witcher season 1 is not told in chronological order. And in a way, that's what makes it so fantastic, is that you see certain things happening, you're trying to understand how they come together, and then you get to where the storylines collide, and then you're like, holy shit. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what happens in The Failures. It is a timeline jump. So the whole time you're reading this book, you are thinking that these simultaneous storylines of all these characters are going in chronological order. That as one thing is happening, they are all happening essentially at the same time, and that is 100% not true. The only story that you could say is relatively in current time are the killer sections. And later, which I did guess this thankfully right before, I did guess it before the end, is that everyone else is their origin story leading to this big thing that happens 20 years in the past and changes everything. And you later learn that these people are alive and dead, and this is who they're with, and this is who this person is, and this is da 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 da. And it all comes together. And it's also interesting too, because not all of the stories start 20 years ago. Some of them start even older, because you have the story of James and Chris. That's where I got the Chris of James and Chris and those two brothers, and then their origin story, and something happens. And that's the other reason why you don't even understand who the good guys are versus the bad guys, because of the way that they start out versus how they get there and what sacrifices they make to survive. I mean, just the idea of Chris, who you think he's this wonder boy, savior, the older brother, the gift of the god, and now it looks like he turns out to be the sociopath, and James is the good guy. Like, there's so many twists and turns. And just the very idea about of like who is who and what gets there, and then who has the ring and who gives the ring to Sophie, and just all this stuff and all this playing out, and then how she ends up with these two people, and then how this other it is phenomenal. And that is what I mean by this unique, extremely well-built story that is sucking me in, because I have to now know what happens. I want more books like this. I'm inspired to write a book like this, and I kind of am right now, and almost to the point where it's like I want to rewrite the whole thing from scratch again. What is wrong with me? I just need to get the story done and just move on. But now I'm wanting to rewrite it for like the 20th time before I'm even done with this rewrite. Okay. We're just gonna not let my brain go there, and let's just get through this review, because we are already massively long. I'm sorry, friends. But just the ability of what he pulled off. I now get why the agent and the editor picked this book. However, I need to sit in this room and pick the brain of who picked this, because how did they get past the typical pages that are sent in this book to be able to decide that this book was worth getting published? Like, I need to understand, because when I read the first pages of this book, I would never have picked it up. I do pre-screening for like Publisher Weekly and all this stuff, and I look at people's books, and I would have denied this book. And I would have felt bad about it now, because what was pulled off is kind of worth the shitty writing. But like, what did it? Was he able to write the perfect synopsis? So a lot of times when you submit books, not a lot of times, half the agents that you submit books to request a full summary of your book. All the spoilers, all the reveals, all this and that. First off, I don't even understand how you wrote that in the chronological order of understanding this book. And I really want a masterclass on how he wrote the summary, or just how he got past the roadblocks, because I have that issue with the book I'm in now, is that there's these issues, and I need to understand, because there's magic here, and I need to understand how this was done. I also want to point out a cheeky little nod and note to everyone, which is that the beginning part of the book, Sophie, who is our only current timeline, let me remind you, gets a sneaky little message that essentially is like, don't trust anything that is happening tonight. It is not what it seems. I think that was meant for us, the reader. I think that was Liar's cheeky little nod to tell us, like, don't take what I'm saying as face value. He also makes a nod to his last name in his bio on Goodreads about picking the nom de plume, and that he purposely picked Liar. And so fuck you, liar, because god damn it. Now you look back and you just feel bamboozled. When I can leave a story and I feel bamboozled and I sit here and like, you did it, you pulled one over me. This is why this book is getting 4 stars, okay? Yeah, I'm gonna admit it. I was fucking fooled and I loved it. And now you see why I'm wanting to pick the next book. Through all the pain that I went through and the bad writing and the world building I had to grasp and just suffer through and the characters, which I did end up liking at the end, the payoff. There was such a massive payoff at the end that I fully succumb to needing to know more. Besides the fact that, yes, we're seeing puzzle pieces come together, but we're not actually told all the puzzle pieces. We're not given everything explained because we are missing 20 years of story to get us to where we are in the current timeline. And that is something that is killing me. Now, I have been proven wrong in my guesses of what book 2s are going to consist of in a series. But I'm going to guess that this is going to be a combination of current timeline and filling in more, like really filling in the war that is mentioned, the Hot Halls War, I believe, that is mentioned multiple times throughout the book. I think that that is what we're going to get to and all of that. I made a note to talk about more of the plot and the characters, but we are already close to a very long book review, and I think that the big points are covered. And if you didn't get enough substance out of this, I'm sorry, and it is what it is, and this is what I have for you guys. And it's been a tough week, and the fact that I just recorded this is a lot. And it is storming, and I hope you enjoyed the Florida rain shower in the background and that you could still hear me all over all of that. We're going to find out. We're going to find out how much this microphone picks up what is going on outside my window. So my partner plays rugby right now, and I pray that he is being safe. Anyway, thank you so much for sticking it out through this long-ass review. I hope that you actually give Failures a try. This is not a book I'm going to recommend to a lot of people, but I hope that it's something that my really sturdy readers will get through and get the same enjoyment out of that I did. But thank you so much. Make sure to, if you like this, make sure to subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to check out my podcast that I host with CJ. It is also on YouTube, and it is audio only on Spotify, Apple, and iTunes. But thank you so much, friends. Have an amazing reading day.